Hey guys, May 3rd, 2023, the Netherlands. The Dutch farmers are being forced out. The Dutch farmers have been protesting on and off for the past, feels like over a year, where essentially the WEF, Mark Rutte, the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, is trying to force the nitrogen emission reduction agenda, 2035, etc., eliminating the farmers and taking their land. So here's the latest update. The Netherlands will start buying out farmers' businesses at between 100 to 120% of their appraised value. This plan was approved by the European Union on Tuesday. Oh, of course it was. As part of a plan to cut nitrogen emissions in half by 2030. That's right, it was the 2030 agenda. Farmers who agree to this buyout will not be able to start up their businesses elsewhere. By taking the money, they agree that the closure of their production capacity is definite and irreversible, and that they will not start up the same breeding activity elsewhere in the Netherlands or within the European Union. The Netherlands is one of the world's largest agriculture producers, second only to the USA, for those that don't know. Dutch farmers have been protesting these measures for months. Those who do not agree to sell their farms to the government will have them expropriated or taken away later. So they're under duress. You must sell us your farm. We'll give you 100%, or for certain, breeding areas that are close to parkland, we'll give you 120% of your business's value. Now, who's to say what the value is? You can argue with that. They're not going to, the numbers, it's always playing with the math. Very much you can skew that. Same thing with the COVID numbers, with the hospitalizations, with everything. You play with the math. You're not vaccinated within 14 days. So everybody that dies or is injured within 14 days is counted as the unvaccinated. So again, skewing the numbers. The exact conditions for the buyout will be revealed by the end of the month. So here's some details on the telegraph.co.uk. Under the 1.47 billion or 1.3 billion euro plan, so the government again is printing money. They are counterfeiting more money to give it. So it's actually, everyone is paying for this with inflation, because your purchasing power of your dollar is going to go down when they put in more currency, when they print more fake money. The whole system falls down and everybody is paying for it. The 1.3 billion plan for entire farms located near nature reserves could be purchased by the government, with hundreds more farmers compensated for voluntarily closing their operations. Yeah, under coercion. We'll take it or else. You give us I'll pay you now, but later I'm just taking the farm. Ugh. It forms part of the HEGU's wider strategy for slashing nitrogen emissions in half by 2030 to comply with the EU targets, the WEF targets. The EU is part of the WEF. On Tuesday, the European Commission approved the Dutch government's proposal under the bloc state aid rules. Brussels ruled that the buyouts would not give farmers who received them an unfair leg up against international competitors on the single market and thus violate EU regulations. About 3,000 farmers who are considered among the country's highest polluting have been identified under the scheme. Dairy, pig, and poultry farmers will be offered 100% of their company's value if they agree to close under a similar program, while the other ones, were 120% with what I just mentioned, dairy, pig, and poultry, near certain areas. The Dutch farmers have been on a collision course with the government for more than a year, while grappled with the consequences of forcing its lucrative agriculture industry to cut emissions. Protests against the climate change targets have often turned violent, with manure and blazing hay bales used to block highways and supermarket distribution centers, leading to empty shelves on numerous occasions. Well, in this article, they just said turned violent, but blazing manure, hay bales on fire, or blocking highways, what is violent? What's the definition of violent? In March, Mark Rutte Here you have the dictator, Mark Rutte, the prime minister, like Trudeau, the long-serving prime minister, received a major defeat in the regional elections as a farmers' protest party scored a victory. That's right. I talked about that a little while ago. So the farmers, through a new party set up in 2019, were also the big winners in last month's provincial elections, winning 15 of the 75 seats and becoming the largest force in Parliament's high chamber. The election was a major blow for Mr. Rutte, dictator, People's Party for Freedom and Democracy. How ironic. The People's Party for Freedom and Democracy is their byline, their subtitle. Mr. Rutte's People for Freedom. It's just like Trudeau, I didn't do anything. We're pro-democracy. We're pro-freedom. And then at the same time, we're going to trample on your freedoms. We're going to trample on your democratic rights. We're going to horse trample you. We're going to put you in jail for protesting, which is your right. You, under the Constitution of Canada, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, to B, to C, to D, to D, you have the right to peacefully protest. You have the right to assemble. Unbelievable. Mr. Rutte has said he soon wants to open a government buyout scheme to compensate farmers who will opt to leave in the industry. Well, now that's actually happening. They created a $22 billion program. This is a month ago they talked about it. And to finish up, the EU's approval of the scheme, which runs until February 2028, will last as long as Dutch farmers agree a definitive closure of their operations. So anyways, guys, that's the update on the Dutch farmer protest and Mark Rutte and his 2030 agenda with the WEF to try to remove food, control the land, purchase it all, own it, government control, state operated, everything. Irnieracing News.